Tied to a harness contraption that was tied to a tree, and then basically had to get on their hands and knees and crawl towards a knife that they'd be allowed to cut themselves out of the contraption. The only problem was they had 10 of their other teammates pulling the other way, and all were given information, personal information, that the players didn't think would be shared to use as forms of abuse.
The Adelaide Crows have been one of the more unique AFL teams in the last decade. They've faced countless adversity throughout the last few years and have had their elite moments as well as their fair share of rock bottom moments per se. In today's video, I'm going to look at the timeline of the Adelaide Crows over the last few years, see what led them to their rise and peak in 2017, and what has since caused their catastrophic downfall. If you are new and enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe for more sports related content like this. This is my first video on my second channel where I will be analysing and making videos on sports that aren't the NBA. Obviously, my main NBA channel will remain my main focus, but every now and again I will be uploading here, whether that be predictions, player or team analysis, or random videos like this. So if you like the sound of that, be sure to subscribe for more. Anyway, with that all out of the way, let's jump back to the 2012 AFL Premiership season and look at the Adelaide Crows.
Lucas.
The 2012 season was really when the rise of the Crows began. In the 2011 season prior, the Crows were mediocre and finished 14th with a record of 7-15. The Crows realised something needed to be done that off-season and went out and got their key forward, who remains with the team today, in Tom Lynch, and also drafted Josh Jenkins and Brad Crouch in that year's draft. With a fresher and improved roster, the Crows had their sights set on a finals appearance, and they did just that, winning 17 games and only finishing in second behind Hawthorn by percentage. Adelaide would do amazingly during the final series, making it to a preliminary final versus Hawthorn. This game was truly the start of a bright future for the Crows, as they captivated a nationwide audience by fighting back from a 16-point deficit at three-quarter time to take the lead with just over 5 minutes to go. Hawthorn would kick 2 successive goals, but the Crows weren't done, with Taylor Walker keeping the Crows alive with 16 seconds to go with a huge 40-metre or so goal. Unfortunately for Crows fans, the Hawks would hold on to a 5-point victory and go through to the grand final, but many weren't angry at this loss by the Crows. Adelaide had a monster turnaround season from the year before, and it was clear this team had a very bright future ahead of them. The 2013 season wasn't the best follow-up year for Adelaide, and their inconsistencies started to shine through. However, not much could really be blamed on them during this season, as they did lose Taylor Walker in April to a season-ending injury. So whilst a 10-12 record and 11th play finish was disappointing, it was obvious why they did struggle. In the off-season, Adelaide made a big splash and signed Eddie Betts, who would be a key piece for them in the future. 2014 wasn't much of an improvement though for the Crows, and they struggled heavily with inconsistency. They dropped 3 straight games to start the season, only to win 3 on the trot, then to go win-loss for the next 8 rounds. They finished the season in 10th with an even record of 11-11 and focused on improving in 2015. Improving in 2015 they did, as Adelaide finally returned to the finals since 2012, finishing 7th with a record of 13-8. To start the season, Adelaide was sitting on top of the ladder as they won 3 straight against North Melbourne, Collingwood and Melbourne, but slowly fell down the ladder, actually sitting outside the 8 in rounds 15, 17 and 18 before winning 3 of their last 4 games to secure a final spot. The Crows would not waste this chance, and in a close and quick momentum changing contest, Adelaide clutched up over the Dogs with a 7-point victory. Though they would be absolutely flogged by the Hawks the next week, fans were slowly getting reminded of their run in 2012, and perhaps they could regain that success with this team the next season. The 2015 off-season would come and go, and Adelaide would take a huge blow, losing beloved star midfielder Patrick Dangerfield to the Geelong Cats. However, the Crows would not falter with this loss, and in an insanely tight season where the first and sixth team were only split by 4 premiership points, the Crows finished 5th with a record of 16-6. Adelaide played very well during the majority of the regular season, going on an 8-game winning streak through the rounds 9-17. In the finals, Adelaide would have a dominating performance against North in the elimination final, before once again getting dominated themselves in the semi-final, this time against the Sydney Swans, eventual runners-up. These past 2 seasons may seem irrelevant now, but this consistent winning form set the Crows up for a lot of success in their next season, the 2017 season. This is where the Crows hit their peak before everything started crumbling down. The Crows looked on top from the get-go in 2017. They killed the Giants in their first game of the season by nearly 10 goals, then cruised to 5 more wins after that, 3 of those by 65 points or more. In the first 6 rounds of that season, the Crows looked simply unstoppable. They were killing anyone and everyone that stood in their way with no remorse. Though the Crows finished the season pretty averagely, they still held on to the top spot on the ladder, and they were viewed as favourites by many to win their first premiership in almost 20 years. The Crows would then follow this up with an even greater performance against the Cats, destroying them by 61 points, never allowing them to be in the game, and it set them up perfectly for a grand final against the Richmond Tigers, a team looking to end a 37-year premiership drought. So, on the 30th of September, the Crows marched out to the 100,021 fans in attendance at the MCG and started their grand final debut since the late 1990s in controversy, bringing out the infamous power stance for the national anthem. The Crows then would have the dream start to the game. After a bit of back and forth for the opening few minutes with no score, the Crows hit the scoreboard first with a 40-metre drop punt from who else but Rory Sloane directly in front. Less than a minute later, the Crows followed up with a little Eddie Bet special, and suddenly it felt as if the Crows were in control of the contest just a couple minutes in. Adelaide fans were going mental. The little passage of play of the last couple minutes had been amazing, and after a couple slow minutes to start, the game had suddenly accelerated. The Tigers would waste a few opportunities in front of goal early on, and whilst they did claw back a bit to take the lead during the first quarter, the Crows would keep pushing it and went into the first break with a 26-15 lead. Though it was early and really felt like anyone's game, it did feel as if the Crows were in slight control. The next quarter was rough though for the Crows. They failed to score a goal for the entire period, whilst the Tigers took advantage and piled on 4 to lead at the main break by 9, with a lot of momentum in their favour as well. From here on out, Richmond will kick away, and we all know the end result of the game. Overall for the Crows, it was a disappointing game, as this season for them had so much promise, and for them to make the grand final, play so well to start, then just allow themselves to get destroyed on the biggest stage is unacceptable, and in many fans' eyes, including myself, started the downfall of the club. Following the grand final, the AFL off-season would arrive, and during this time, AFL teams will generally run training camps for their players in order to build team chemistry, improve fitness in preparation for the upcoming season, and give players a positive mindset as they prepare themselves to return. The Adelaide Crows, like any other team, ran a camp during the off-season, except unlike any other one, theirs turned out to be very infamous. Over the last few years, multiple Crows players have left the club due to this camp, and until very recently, what actually happened there was not known in much detail by the public. However, thanks to an investigation/interview done by Sam McClure, AFL fans have now been given an insight into the camp that, in my opinion, has destroyed the club completely and has led to their catastrophic downfall. The things the players had to do were just so wrong, and I'll list a few for you now. Players were tied to trees and had to crawl for a knife to cut them loose whilst personal abuse was being hurled at them. The Richmond Tigers theme song was blared on repeat whilst they ran sprints. The players weren't even allowed to know where they were, as they were blindfolded on the bus on the way there and had their phones confiscated when they arrived. The whole camp just sounds so incredibly messed up, and it's left a large stain on the club as a result of it. This camp has also cost them many key players, such as Eddie Betts, who has openly said that the camp made him lose his love for football and is a reason why he returned to Carlton this season. In my opinion, this camp is the main reason why the Crows have fallen off so heavily the past few seasons, and whilst it isn't the sole reason for their demise, it certainly is the biggest. More proof that this camp affected the Crows negatively in a major way is the 2018 AFL season. Though the Crows weren't bad this season, they won more games than they lost, the quality of football they played was a lot worse, and they really just didn't look like the same team they were a year prior. They finished 12th, and for the first time since 2014, missed the finals. 2019 wasn't much better for the Crows, winning only 10 games and finishing 11th, struggling with inconsistency all year long, and a lot of questions about their future. Now in 2020, after a long off-season where they lost multiple key players such as Eddie Betts, the Crows are winless after 4 games, play with no energy, and are simply the worst team in the comp. The drop from the top has been quick and painful for Crows fans, and unfortunately, the current roster looks years away from contending again. It's unfortunate to see, as the Adelaide Crows from the 2015 to 2017 era were such fun teams to watch, and for an opposition fan, gave them a bit of a scare when they saw them against their team on the fixture. Who knows how different things could have been if it were not for that awful camp after the 2017 grand final loss. Who knows if they're still a title contender to this day. To begin the decade, the Crows were a young team full of promise, and throughout the decade rose to almost the very pinnacle of our great sport. But due to some poor decision making behind the scenes, the Crows are now back down where they began all those long years ago. Can they reach the heights of 2017 again soon? I'm honestly not too confident in that, unfortunately, but hey, the Crows are officially at rock bottom right now. The only way they can go from here is up.